Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is around the world. A huge, warm welcome to this, The Kev Baker Show, coming to you live from a very smart city in Glasgow, Scotland. And we're broadcasting around the world on Truth Frequency Radio, www.tfrlive.com. Brilliant show to start the week. This week, you're going to love today's Hour 1 guest, and we'll be getting into that in just a moment. But if I can just briefly let you know what's coming up this week. Tomorrow, we've got the return of Ben Emlyn Jones. He's going to be coming back onto the show, my fellow UK UFO-aholic. He'll be on here. We'll be talking about all things UFO. We'll also be getting into Brexit tomorrow as well. Don Wiskin will be here on Wednesday in hour number 2. And then to round off the week, we have got the real-life exorcist. Yes, the spiritual warrior himself. He's back in town. Bill Bean will be live here on the network. So then, can you believe it, folks? We're here in the month of April already. And April Fool's Day, it's come and it's gone for some of us. But there's another date on the calendar that many of us here listening today have probably got circled and we're waiting it with great anticipation. And that, of course, is 420. Now, 420 is, of course, for anyone out there who doesn't know, World Weed Day, for lack of a better term. An occasion that sees hundreds of thousands, maybe millions around the world, celebrate cannabis by blazing up and taking part in celebrations that reach right around the globe. Even here in Glasgow, where the drug laws are very, very draconian, just 5 minutes walk from me down at Glasgow Green, thousands of people will come together with the safety of knowing that the police for one day, just one day only, will not intervene. They will not be arresting people for victimless crimes like possession, like we see 364 other days of the year. So that's just an example of 420. And of course, that's the recreational side of cannabis. And today on the show, we're going to look at the medical side of it, and what is surely can only be described as nature's very own wonder drug. Now, the use of cannabis has been in the news a lot lately, with large portions of America changing their drug laws. Even over here, at the tail end of last year, there was talk of medical cannabis being made available to the British public. We'll get into more of that as the show progresses, but this is nothing new, folks. The use of cannabis as a medicine, you can go back to the Greeks, when they were using it on things like nosebleeds and tapeworms. And then there's also reports in medieval Islamic history that shows cannabis was used as a diuretic, an antiemetic, and an anti-epileptic. And right up until around the turn of the 20th century, 1900, cannabis was actually commonly used in the West as a primary pain reliever. Now today, here we are, despite laws being relaxed in many states of the US and countries around the world, the FDA still labels cannabis as a Schedule 1 drug. Yet there are so many people out there that could and should be taking advantage of the miraculous benefits that medical cannabis has to offer. Well, one man that is helping get that care and the product they need is Daniel Lewis Crumpton, the man behind something called CannaSense, a cannabis collective. Now, Daniel is here with me today to talk about all this and more. So less from me, and let's go live all the way to Daniel over there in the US. How you doing, brother?
It is April 1st, man. No tricks.
No tricks today, man. No, it's past that time of day over here, so my Joker is back in the cupboard until next year. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing better than I was yesterday, man. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you here, and we've got a mutual friend, Ron Patton. He speaks very highly of you, and he's been trying to line this show up for some time now, and I always think things happen at a right time, or at the right time for the right reason. And I can't think of a better time for us to be doing this as we go into the month of April, 420 coming up. But talk to us about how Daniel Crumpton got into CannaSense.
Yeah, let me make just a couple of corrections, Kev. I'm not alone. I'm not one man. The people who are behind CannaSense, it's a team of like-minded, liberty-minded individualists who we look at the simplicity of this situation. We don't want to overcomplicate the issue with cannabis. And so I am certainly not alone when it comes to the CannaSense initiatives, if it were. So let me make that clear. But how did I come across CannaSense? That's probably the best place to start. And just before we kind of get rolling, anyone who is out there in the States that could benefit from medical cannabis and you don't have access to it, or access is limited or scrutinized, I do suggest that while you're listening to this to go ahead and pull up a tab, go to CannaSense.com or new.CannaSense.com. Either way is going to get you there. And that way you can kind of see the website and see the story that I'm going to be laying out for you guys. That way, if I go kind of quick, because I go through the battery of this stuff so quick because I know it backwards and forwards, that you can actually see this information for yourself at that website. So I would just encourage everybody, open up a tab, go to CannaSense.com and kind of follow along. You with me so far, Kev?
Absolutely. And I've dropped that in the chat room over at tfrlive.com/chat. So anyone, if you're out there listening, if you didn't get that link, it is CannaSense.com. That's CannaSense, CannaSense.com. So Daniel, take it away.
All right, so how I came across CannaSense was, I come out of the Ron Paul movement, the Liberty movement. I believe that the Constitution, I don't believe it, I know it. The Constitution is the supreme law of this land, and basically if any inferior pieces of legislation or entities like states, counties, things like that, if they come along and they write any legislation that contradicts the Constitution, or issues a license or a fee for a previously secured right that I already have. I know that Marbury versus Madison says that basically it's null and void of law, that we don't have to brand it unlawful in open court of law. It's unlawful before the ink even dries on the document. So that's the position that I come from, which is I have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the Supreme Court's ruled that the Constitution has to be interpreted liberally and liberally in favor of the designated beneficiary, and that's me, and that's the American citizen. So want to make that clear. Basically what that does is it cuts through, it allows the listener, the American, the individualist, to cut through the red tape of legalese right away, as long as you have this small document and you understand the small document. Because I don't like looking at things that government does as a Goliath that we have to go and slay. It only has the power that we, the people, the source and the author of the law, give it. Now, you're following me so far?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm sitting here, because this is one of the things as somebody outside of the US, this can get quite confusing because we see how some states have changed the law, but then we hear about how the feds, they don't recognize it. And I'm left scratching my head because I was always led to believe growing up that was the beauty of the United States, The individual states had their laws. And you didn't like one place, you could move to another, Daniel. And then you find out Washington have the final say on everything. So, this is great that you're laying this out.
Yeah, and let's not forget the 9th and 10th Amendment. We still have nullification powers. You know what I mean? So even if the states do arbitrarily come along and scribble some stuff, some statutes, acts, we still can turn it off with the Bill of Rights. Like I've said over and over and over again, if you go into a law library, it doesn't matter what state, and you look at all of these books with all these numbers and dashes, you have to understand that every one of those books is built on this document. And if any of those scribblings contradict this document, the Supremacy Clause says that all the judges in all the states and counties and parishes have to acquiesce to the supreme law of the land, which is this. So to me, like I want to navigate people through the hall of smoke and mirrors of legalese versus the law, right? The law is very simple. It's a small document. Legalese and the world of legality that's exactly what it is. It's there to intimidate you. It's there to overwhelm you. It's there to choke you. And so I don't look at issues specifically when it comes to cannabis and the rights of the medical patient to have access to their medicine.
Oh, Daniel, you still there?
So that being my background, being an activist in the liberty movement, and being in an area of the country in the Bible Belt, as you could probably tell. It's nice to be on the air with somebody who has a thicker accent than me, by the way.
Yeah, everyone talks about my accent. I'm used to it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, you're in good company, man. You're like,
I like your
I
accent,
like you.
dude.
I like the way you talk.
You know,
And I'm
one of
like,
the things you're saying there, you know, the medical patients who are trying to get their hands on cannabis, you know, I would imagine they're some of the same people who are quite intimidated by the confusion over the laws.
yeah. Yeah, and what one of the things that CannaSense does is this is how I approached them was they approached me rather, and they came to me with a very simple model of how someone who's in the Bible Belt, can get access to clean medical cannabis, be it flower or vape cartridges or supplements. You know, me being from Georgia, when I first was exposed to the different methods of intake for medical cannabis, I was blown away. It's a science now. You know, it really is a science now. So it made sense to me when CannaSense approached me about their model, which is very simple. And it's like this. And if you're listening and you are in an area of the country that you can't get access to medicine, you really need to bookmark the website, go to the website, reach out to us, because it's very simple. We use something called the trifecta. It's not the only pieces of legislation or the only legal framework which allows the CannaSense to operate lawfully, but it's enough to get people in the door. Because we understand that a lot of people who are out there suffering from trauma or anxiety, depression, they may not be as well versed in the law or their rights or liberty as, say, myself or you. So we're not trying to block them out. We want them to have an easy in to get access to their medicine to start getting well. And so we use the trifecta. Oh, I'm in the Illuminati cave.
Yeah, that's it. The trolls will love that as much as they love my logo. So don't worry about it, Daniel. You know that I usually trigger them with the logo.
Yeah, like instigating thought too. But yeah, the trifecta. Basically, it's like this. I'm in Georgia. They approached me and they said, "Here's what we can do for you, Mr. Crumpton. We can get you to become a lawful medical cannabis California patient." Okay. Now I'm in Georgia. So CannaSense isn't going to fly me or bus me or drive me to California to visit a California board certified doctor, right? Okay. But we have what's called the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, which is California law. And it says if you go see a doctor, you get your medical recommendation, you're immune from scrutiny from, law enforcement, essentially. And it also, the Compassionate Use Act gives more than one medical cannabis patient the ability to form a collective, a group, a family, people who help one another to procure their medicine, cultivate their medicine, transport their medicine, administer their medicine. This is all California, the Compassionate Use Act of 1996. That's one part of the trifecta. Now, you're with me so far.
Yep.
Right. So I'm in Georgia, not going to California, never been to California yet. I need to see a California board-certified doctor. And so how the CannaSense model works is we have the second point of the trifecta, which is the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. I'm not a fan of executive orders or anything that comes down the pike. But if you give me a tool, I'm going to use the tool, okay? And what the Affordable Care Act gave us was telemedicine. So a visit to a doctor in California is a lawful visit. They can write recommendations. They can write prescriptions via the internet. So that's the second point. You with me so far, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, and that's exactly what CannaSense helped me do. They joined me with a sponsor who got me to an online medical provider that saw me, evaluated the conditions that I was seeking medical cannabis for, gave me a treatment plan, educated me about cannabis like you wouldn't believe. And I do encourage people who are going to go through this process to listen to what your doctor has to say about your treatment plan. For me, I was seeking medical cannabis for PTSD, and I'm a recovered alcoholic. So they gave me a very specific treatment plan to those needs. And so after I got my recommendation through telemedicine, I'm in Georgia. Well, we have something in the Constitution called the Reciprocity Clause, which means that we, the citizens, have the right to the full faith and credit of the judicial proceedings and court orders of other states, even if our state's laws are different. So all of this makes sense, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm following this easy. I hope the listeners out there are going along with this. If the chat room's anything to go by, yeah, definite, man.
So this is the trifecta. It's the window to get people who are, if you're out there and you're listening and you have post-traumatic stress disorder, I can relate. It's something that you You can't explain to another person who has never experienced it. So it's very difficult to keep your thoughts focused. So those people need their medicine and they need it now. And they don't need to listen to me go on for hours about Supreme Court rulings or United States codes. They just need the trifecta.
Yep.
Okay, to get in and get their medicine. So once you go through the window of the trifecta, you get your recommendation. Okay, you upload your recommendation to CannaSense.com, and then give us 24 to 48 hours to verify your documentation. And then you get access into the apothecary. It's not a dispensary. It's not a store. It's an apothecary. And from there, you can go by your doctor's treatment plan and select medical grade cannabis and CBD that is going to suit your ailments and assist you in being able to touch a plateau to begin a path of wellness. So it's really that simple to get into the collective. And that's what you really want to do first. Even if this show goes a little fast, the information doesn't quite stick, at the very least, go to the website, put in your documentation so that you can start getting more and more information in our newsletters, in our videos, in our social media. We will connect you with a sponsor that can answer these questions for you, that can walk you through the process and kind of guide you. And that's one of the beautiful things about CannaSense is the nature of family, that goes along with it. So that's the simple version. And there's a lot of other assets to being a part of the CannaSense Collective, which is the numerous charities. And those of you who are listening, you have a tab. If you kind of pull up the website, you'll see up at the top the different menus. And so there's the education page. Now, one of the other goals of CannaSense is to get you better in your spirit, in your body, but we also want to influence and encourage the ideas of freedom and liberty. So these are two things that absolutely, in my mind, are paramount, that I'm very passionate about, and CannaSense marries the two. So when they approached me, all of this was very simple. You don't have to convince me that cannabis is a medicine. You don't have to convince me that cannabis is also a part of every spiritual sacrament that you can think of. I don't need you to convince me. I don't need you to convince me that my right as an American with unalienable rights, that I have a right to pursue cannabis as a spiritual sacrament myself. I have a First Amendment. And what I have seen in the past generation is that we have become a generation waiting for permission from some authority figure to engage in rights that we have. All we have to do is just breathe life into them by living in them.
I've almost said at times it's like a defect in our genetic code, Daniel, the fact that we all always seek that authority figure. We don't seem to realize we have the power to do things ourselves. And you see it more so, the bigger the group of people gets, the more they look towards that authority to tell them what they can and can't do. And, we just need to remember that we're already free.
Right. And not just remember, knowledge isn't power. Application of knowledge is power. What good is knowing your rights if you don't walk in them? What good are they? And I've said this before, I love the Constitution. In my mind, the Constitution is indeed a spiritual document, in my opinion.
Yeah, I heard you talking about this today, and I hadn't really thought about it. But, it might seem strange to say it on the face of it, but it kind of transcends politics. Despite the fact it's a political document, it's the fact of what it stands for. It's above politics, in my opinion.
Well, Kevin, I've said this before. There is a difference between America and the American government and American politics. I know that our country is at the beating heart of a lot of the world's woes. It is not beyond me. When I talk about America, when I talk about the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, I'm not speaking from a political place. The idea of America is the greatest idea ever. It is the idea of a new Atlantis, a melting pot where we all can become one until the many become the one. It's the idea of freedom and liberty, and every man is a king and every woman is a queen. Those are good ideas. They're the best ideas. creating a society where so long as your rights don't infringe or impede on someone else's rights, you could do whatever you want to do, even if it's harmful to yourself, right?
Yep.
Those are the highest ideas. And what we've allowed the corporation to do is hijack America or the idea of America. You know what I mean? And there, you really do have to, if you're passionate about it. One, if you have kids, if you have a generation that's coming up from underneath you, and you're not, if you're just apathetic about this stuff, well, shame on you, man. Shame on you. It really does matter what we pass along. And how I know that it matters is because of what we inherited.
Yep.
And it's not good. And the reason that we inherited it is because of apathy from generations before. And we are in a point of human history where with the internet, with the advent of the internet, we have no excuse to be ignorant. None, man. We have no excuse to be ignorant. And I believe we have a window of time to breathe life back into this republic, to where we can turn the machinery around for, rather than this dystopian 1984-ish Brave New World outcome that a lot of people in alternative media are just convinced that we're heading towards. And we might as well just laugh about it. Genocide it just has to be funny because it's inevitable. Man, I don't believe that, Kev. And I think that's a cop-out. The idea that we are fated to go to a dystopian nightmare of a future it's a cop-out. It's a cop-out of people who can see the issues and aren't centered enough to come up with solutions for the issues. That's what it is. It's taking your sovereignty, and sovereignty, the best way that I know how to explain it, as it was explained to me, was taking personal responsibility and putting it off on somebody else. And it's always the they. It's always some Illuminati or guys in a smoke-filled room that you don't know their names, and even if you did, you couldn't do anything about it. So what's the point? Man, that's all a cop-out to me, Kev. I think that we live in a time where we are evolving as a people in every way, and we have an opportunity with the access to the information at the speed of the internet to organize. Those of us who are like-minded, to get educated, to get passionate about certain things, and to organize and to push in a direction that we really want to see this world going in. Sorry, that's the Southern Baptist.
I'm sitting here. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And I have a tendency to sometimes laugh, but not. It's more of a coping mechanism as opposed to just lying back and accepting what's going on. And I agree with you totally. We have to take advantage of the internet in particular, especially the way it's changing, the censorship that's going on right now. We have to use this to really come together, and that's what I like about CannaSense as well, Daniel. The fact that it's almost like a family. You said that this collective, and you also look out for each other, right? You look out for your members as well if they fall foul of the law or anything like that. So it's more than just it's a full kind of package. It's like a little community you're really building up here.
And I'm not alone. Let me preface, I'm not alone.
Obviously, yeah.
I got a team of Avengers behind me, no doubt. But and I would say, yeah, it is important to laugh. And I think that what to me is really, really funny, and you'll appreciate this, is the whole 420 thing. Everybody has a theory, but I just think it's a Douglas Adams reference. You know what I mean? And so, you know what I mean? It's 42, right?
Everyone has their own idea. You're right there.
Mine's as good as anyone else's, right? So, but yeah, CannaSense, that's another thing. We don't like bullies, and we don't like people, especially behind badges, who are bullies. And when you're in a family and when you're in a collective, you look out for the weakest amongst you. Yeah. That's what a family does. That's what a collective does. So we have what's called the CannaSense Foundation, and places like here in Georgia, for example, I'm way more likely to come under scrutiny than someone out west, and have, because of my insistence on taking part in the cannabis plan. So what the CannaSense Foundation is if you, and we haven't had any, you would think that we would have had a ton of these incidences, but we really haven't, because once you get your medical recommendation, that pretty much stops 90% of any scrutiny that's going to come your way from some guy behind a badge, right? You have a medical recommendation card, medical cannabis. It just takes a little bit of knowledge to let that officer know, hey, Reciprocity Clause, here's the Constitution.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
That's
Most
actually
police
good
officers,
news.
man.
That's good news, man, because you would expect with all of the negative stuff you hear about law enforcement, and you get good cops, you get bad cops. They're just human, same as anyone else. But
Yeah,
that's
they got a
actually,
fan.
yeah, that's actually quite good that people aren't getting grief, aren't getting hassle. And we're going to pick this up on the other side. We're going to go for a quick 3-minute break. We're going to find out more about CannaSense. We're going to find out how, you can get even more involved in CannaSense as well. You're listening to Daniel Lewis Crumpton, and he is one of the team of Avengers that is behind the website called CannaSense.com. That's CannaSense.com. And before we go back to Daniel, let me just quickly read their mission out here, because I think it's really brilliant. It says, our mission is to educate potential and existing patients on the benefits of medical cannabis and how to safely and legally access it at an affordable price. Seniors, veterans, disabled people, and almost anyone seeking pain relief could potentially benefit from medical cannabis. We also help frame cannabis issues with a social perspective while sharing important technical and medical information from across the world. With information rooted in science and medicine, we use facts and studies to dismiss the propaganda, of which there is lots, that has belied cannabis throughout its history. Now, we pledge to continue our mission until safe access to quality medicinal cannabis is guaranteed for all qualified patients. You can check out that over at CannaSense.com. We've got Daniel Lewis Crumpton here with us. Before the break, we were getting into all of this, but more specifically, something called the CannaSense Foundation. And this is the people that will help you out if, say, maybe you're part of the collective and you get pulled over with some cannabis in your pocket. Is that the kind of thing you step in and help with there, Daniel?
Yeah, and I've said it before, if you are a member of the CannaSense Collective and you have your medicine with you and there's a body in your trunk or you're robbing a bank, probably not going to help you, okay?
Yeah, there's only so far you can go for people, right?
Only so far. I mean, if it's an ex-mother-in-law, we'll consider it. No, that's a joke. That's a joke. Jeez. But yeah, I mean, but if you're engaging in your right as an American and as a medical cannabis patient, and you have your medicine with you and you come under scrutiny, then yeah, the CannaSense Foundation is a 501c3 that can assist you with legal fees. And we try to step in. If you procure your own attorneys, we try to dialogue with them, be an advocate, and maybe show them some case law that they haven't seen. Help out with motions to dismiss. We don't believe that we're going to come in and save you, okay? Because that's kind of enabling apathy. You will have a say-so in what happens if you come under scrutiny, if you want to take a plea deal or whatever. We'll help you with the options. And if it comes down to a pinch and you procure, legal fees as a result of being a medical cannabis patient, we'll come in and we'll assist you with that and try to set some precedent in your state. Because that's another thing that we're really passionate about is there is a revolution going on. It doesn't have to be a violent revolution because I'm very, very much opposed to that because everybody will lose. But there's a better way to do a revolution, and it's through not picking a fight or waging a war, but through having a conversation of issues that really have been resolved since at least 1776. A lot of these things that we think we have to undo with legislation or like the scheduling issue, like cannabis being on the Schedule 1. That's incorrect, as a matter of fact, but we can get to that later. But yeah, I mean, so the best way to move a revolution forward is very much in a Douglas Adams type of way. And how else could you do that without the cannabis plant, right? In my opinion.
No, I absolutely agree with you there,
Yeah, but like I said before the break, we really haven't had too many instances of any of our collective members coming under scrutiny at all. The model itself kind of speaks loudly to people behind a badge. It speaks for itself.
So for people sitting at home right now then, anyone sitting listening to this in the US who might be thinking, wow, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I've got a friend in Kansas, for example, really harsh laws there, very hard to get your hands on anything. What would be the procedure then for them to get involved with CannaSense?
Well, first, make sure that they're at the website, which is CannaSense.com. Make sure they bookmark it, and right away we try to keep it easy. My good friend Neil Schloss is kind of the brainchild of all this, and we were discussing the website the other night, and he says, you're a writer. It's like the website's built to tell a story. And then I got to look at it from his point of view, and I said, well, he's actually correct. So if you're at the home screen, I mean, right there you can click on the Learn More button, and right when you hit the Learn More button, it's going to give you a breakdown of basically what I've said, which is what we are, how we operate in all 50 states lawfully. Okay, so it'll break down the trifecta for your listeners there, what the costs are involved with it. And then it kind of breaks down the caregivers and gives you an enormous amount of resources, scientific resources, links that you can go to for whatever your ailment is to get educated on cannabis. So we try to put a lot of educational material in there because education is critical. It's absolutely critical. So the second thing I would suggest that you do after you kind of get acclimated to that is you'll see that there's Become a Member. And don't let this confuse you either, because when you go to the Become a Member page, you're going to see 4 different pathways. Don't freak out about it. All 4 of those things take you to the same form. All right. The most important thing is to come in, period, so that you can start getting information via newsletters, video, radio shows like this. So if you want to come in just to kind of poke around, get more information, meet a few people, get a sponsor, you would come in as a caregiver. And what I would preface is just make sure you get your medical recommendation first. If you don't and you need help with that, you could reach us at the website by clicking on support and saying, hey, I need a sponsor to walk me through. You can also reach us at on our Facebook page, CannaSense Total Wellness. You can message us there and we can hook you up with a sponsor that can walk you through. We have a toll-free number, which is, I love giving out toll-free numbers because it sounds like an infomercial.
I'm terrible. I am terrible at giving out numbers, dude.
You can reach CannaSense Total Wellness at 1-833-633-42. 633-4208. Okay. That was all right, right?
Dude, you're an absolute pro. You're going to be taking my job off me soon. I'm telling you, man. I'm just looking at the audience out there. They're probably thinking, this guy's got a cooler accent. He's got cooler information. And he can do the phone number better. I'm in trouble, man.
It's a lot of late night infomercials, man. It was a dark time in my life. Anyway.
We've all been there.
Yeah, when you go to the contact form, it's real simple. You put in where you heard about CannaSense or who's walking you through so that we can appropriately place you in the collective. You put your name, your address in, and then you upload. You put what part of CannaSense you're interested in. If it's just being a caregiver, great. If you want to move up into being a patient so that you can actually procure medical cannabis in the apothecary, great. If you want to be a member, that comes with a lot more benefits, a lot more perks, and is geared toward equipping activists who are just as passionate as I am with a lot of cool stuff, just a lot of cool stuff. So I would just say, go ahead and go to the Become a Member page if you're listening, even if you don't want to commit to anything. Upload your documentation, get into our mailing list so that you can get information. And at any time that you need someone, you can hit reply to a newsletter and someone will reach out to you. I see a lot of cases where, we have a lot of senior citizen patients, a lot, and a lot of dementia, a lot of Alzheimer's. And so we understand that a lot of this information may go not over the head. That sounds horrible, but it may not stick for a lot of people who do need medical cannabis. So if you're listening now and this is something that you want to look into, go to the Become a Member page, click on Caregiver, get into our system at least, and we'll walk you through the rest. And it's really that simple. And then what we really want to do is, just like on the website as it tells the story, we want you educated. So we have a lot of information that'll educate you on the usages of responsible usage. That's another thing, is I'm not of the opinion that cannabis cannot be abused. Anything can be abused, and cannabis can be abused. And we don't advocate that. We don't advocate the stigma that, say, reefer madness would put on society. We encourage responsible use of cannabis. So we want you educated. So there's an education page. We want all members of our collective to be just as educated as, say, me. Not that I'm educated. I got a GED, which means I'm pretty smart. saying.
You certainly come across that way. And, we need something like CannaSense over here because just towards the end of last year, our government, and it was Sajid Javid is the gentleman's name, he made medical cannabis available in the UK. However, because of blurry and ambiguous guidelines and hoops that you have to jump through, well, maybe only a handful of people have actually got access to this, Daniel. So this is why, there's lots of people, be it in the US or anywhere around the world, who are really in need of this. And, I think a lot of the population of the world, especially people that look into information like we do, we're probably, even if we don't realize it, we're all suffering from one level or form of post-traumatic stress disorder. And this is something that medical cannabis can alleviate straight away. And yet people can't get their hands on it. And it's something I get quite angry at, because here's a weed in the ground that a government, some government that I've never voted for, that they can send me to prison for smoking that, for something I'm doing to my own body, really? And that's why it's something I've always been passionate about and something that makes me really encouraged to hear about something like CannaSense. I'm really kind of impressed with this, dude.
Yeah, man. I mean, I was impressed with it too. Obviously, clearly, here I am, right?
you've really got, your passion for this comes across, and you've got a personal kind of story with medical cannabis that really, you're extra invested in this because you've watched both what no cannabis can do and what somebody with cannabis is like.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it briefly off the air.
I'm sorry, Daniel, if you didn't want to bring it up.
No. I've talked about it before. Cool. It's fine. I mean, it's part of life. But yeah, I mean, I never really used cannabis as recreationally coming up. As a teenager, I was a drinker. And my dad, he was a veteran of 2 foreign wars, okay? And he had very, very bad arthritis, and it was very painful to see. And, he did not believe in big pharma. He didn't believe in painkillers or opiates. And so he just made the decision to white knuckle it. And he never really was a cannabis user either. But I had started to do research on the benefits of pain alleviation for arthritis with cannabis. And I asked my dad, I was like, Dad, if I were able to get you some, would you use that? And he took his glasses off and he said, yes. Now, when my father said that, I knew he was in pain. Okay. Now, of course, here in Georgia, the only places that you can get cannabis other than CannaSense is on the black market, which is not cool. It's just not something you want to do. You don't know what's in that medicine. You don't know what else they're selling, things like that. So by the time it took me to even know where to begin to procure, black market cannabis, where do you even start? You know Exactly. What I mean? When you're completely ignorant of that world. In the time frame it took me to do that, even through the fear of punishment from the state, my father passed away due to an ulcer in his heart from taking over-the-counter pain relievers. And that infuriated me, Kev, because I said, this is insane that my father, who's a veteran of 2 foreign wars, man, could go down to the local pharmacy and have legal cocaine with a scribble from a doctor. Okay? He could if he had wanted to go that route. But he could not go get a natural plant that was put on this planet for the healing of the nations. He couldn't do that. To me, that was a crime against humanity. If my dad had access to clean cannabis, he might still be with me. Probably would still be with me. And that kind of propelled me, because in anything that you get passionate about, you got to get pissed off first. You know that something wrong is going on. Maybe you can't articulate it. Maybe you can't put your finger on it, but something's not right. That should not have happened in a just world. And so that's what got me into pursuing cannabis as an activist. And then CannaSense came along and gave me a vehicle to really drive it home. Well, in the interim of that, my mom, who was a 2-time cancer survivor, the strongest human being that ever walked around in a meat bag, I'll tell you, that woman could punch a planet through a hurricane. She was so strong. But even through defeating cancer twice due to complications with earlier things, she passed away from end-stage COPD this past August. And she was a member. She was in my caregivership in CannaSense. And so I got to help my mother through cannabis, through medicine that CannaSense provided, leave this world with dignity, with laughter, with joy, with peace, with being able to. Because if you've ever seen anybody with COPD try to eat, it's not a pleasant thing.
Well,
They can hardly
unbeknown
eat.
to you, I have quite serious COPD to the
Okay.
point where in the next 6 months I'll find out if I'm getting a transplant or microvalves put in. And the reason they're even saying I'm viable for the transplant, I'm only 43 this year, so I'm not exactly an old guy. So this is quite close to home for me. It really is, listening to you talking about that. And it's about the quality of life, that something like cannabis can change. It might not change our own expiration dates per se. However, leading up to that, surely the quality of life, that we live, it's vitally important. We shouldn't be spending our last days in pain, Daniel.
No, we shouldn't. And she certainly didn't. I mean, she was. It really was. And this sounds morbid as all get out, but watching my mom cross the threshold of this world into the next world was truly a beautiful thing, because it was an example, and it wouldn't be possible without the CannaSense model. It wouldn't be. And so I'm speaking to you as someone who, not as a spokesperson for CannaSense. It may sound that way, but I'm speaking from a point of CannaSense changed my life. It changed my world, and it changes lives and other people's worlds too. And that was one of them. I got to be witness to one of the most magnificent women that's ever walked this planet leaving this earth in dignity, in joy, in peace. It was a beautiful experience. It was obviously heart-wrenching because but nobody ever really leaves us. They don't go anywhere. They go everywhere.
Yeah.
But cannabis allowed that transition. So, and for people like myself, and I was talking about on the show I did last night about, with Donald Trump coming out with the right to try, saying basically that if you have a terminal condition, you have a right to try it, right? So it's like, okay, I'm a recovered alcoholic and I have PTSD. Am I terminal? Well, if I don't keep my conditions in check, yeah. I'm terminal, bud. Somebody with clinical depression or anxiety, if they don't have their medicine, if they can't keep that in check, they could be terminal. You know what I mean? So we know it's a game of semantics, but just because it's a game of semantics doesn't mean it's not true. But yeah, and talk about my personal story. Everybody who is operating the gears behind CannaSense has a personal story to either great loss because they couldn't get access to clean medicine, or a complete resurrection of their well-being or the well-being of someone around them. They all have a personal connection. Like Neil, my friend Neil, who is the brainchild of this essentially. I mean, the reason that he is passionate about this is because of a mother that across the veil due to cancer, and she might still be here, could still be here, probably would still be here had there not been some authoritarian blockade from her right to, like you said, have a better quality of life regardless of the expiration date, And that's a thing that CannaSense, and I might go off on some Southern Baptist platform here, but and not that I'm a Southern Baptist, excommunicated, if such a thing is possible, as you can tell.
Recovering.
I'm in a dark. Yeah, I'm a recovering.
No, but in preparation for today's interview, I obviously listened to a few of your previous interviews you've done, and I know you're just one man behind CannaSense, but the brief conversation we had before the show as well, it sounds like this team of Avengers, as we kind of affectionately are referring to them as, I think you've had to have had this personal kind of touch, this kind of personal interest, to have this passion come through. And listening to you on a couple of shows, your passion for this, yeah, you're telling everyone about CannaSense and you want people to get involved in that, but it's for the right reason, because you've literally lived through two instances where it's been night and day. You've seen the difference that it can make.
Yeah, and I'm in between, and another thing is, if you call that toll-free number, 1-833-633-4208, I could do it better. You mean do it better?
Yeah, I think you should give it one more time. Go for it.
That toll-free number is 1-833 633-633-4208.
See, I think I'll actually get you to record the call-in line for my show.
Right.
So that way people will actually hear the number and like it. Yeah. So if people call this number, dude, what's happening?
Yeah, if you call, your chances are you'll speak to me, or another patient support member. And like, it's a beautiful thing because I do interact with the patients, that I get to hear their stories. And it's emotional. It's very, very emotional because, when I say this over and over again, I'm not exaggerating with it. And it doesn't get old because it is emotionally inspired. These people inspire me every single day. I have no excuse to feel sorry for myself. We always want to throw a pity party, but I hear stories every day from our patients or people who are trying to become members of the collective that they'll talk to you one day and they're literally like seconds away from putting a gun in their mouth, man. Literally. And I'm not a therapist or anything, but I can empathize. And then you walk them through the process, calm them down a little bit. They get their medicine. And then a week later, you hear someone completely reborn, and that is an emotional high. So, and it's important for me to stay involved with CannaSense in that capacity so I don't ever lose the passion. Because when the passion's out of it, then it's nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we often talk on the show about how much time we spend on the problems of the world and how little time we spend on the solutions. But what you're doing, your job, you're literally providing those solutions. And that's why it is so rewarding. That's good work.
Yeah, it is. And to me, it solves so many problems. And I've joked about this, but it's serious. Some other hosts gave me the idea. They say, what we are to make sure that we get these veterans coming back home some cannabis. And I say, I got a better idea. How about we mandate that they smoke a doobie before they sign on the dotted line to join the military, and then we put an end to war.
Yeah.
The cannabis plan and the frequency of the cannabis plant is one of peace, of tranquility. And I said last night, and I'll say it again, it's the equivalent of laying in a grassy hill on, an Oregon cliffside, watching the sun go down with a beautiful woman by your side. That's the cannabis spirit. The big pharma route or the white knuckling it route is what you see in the Middle East.
Yeah.
It's night and day. And it's just my opinion that a lot of the stuff that people in the alternative media are talking about, are screaming about, or panicked about, and really don't have any solutions, the solution is, one, slow down. Take a breath. Yeah. Find a place of calmness.
I tell people
what better way to do that?
I tell people to step away from the computer, open your curtains, look outside, and guess what? The world hasn't changed that much. It's still all there, Just unplug. The amount of people I see on social media that are getting upset and worked up about things that literally, we would all love to change, Daniel, but we can't change. And you think to yourself, stop worrying about these things. You're doing yourself probably ill health by the state you're getting into.
Yeah, and the technology and the internet's a wonderful thing. It's an awesome thing. Like this morning I was talking to my girlfriend, and I'm like, that's a new Led Zeppelin song I've never heard before. We live in such a wonderful time, right? To where we have access to this information. But then there's another side of that coin, which is, I believe it's creating mass ADHD, because everyone their phones are going off. There's dings, there's chimes, there's Facebook, there's Instagram. There's all of these different outlets to pull your attention away from center.
It's like a cytokine storm, when the immune system attacks something. That's like the data coming at us 24/7. It's just overwhelming. But we're almost out of time, Daniel. And this has been brilliant. Hopefully we can get you back on in the near future as well, because I certainly can get used to hanging out with you and your radio voice. But no, any last kind of messages for the listeners, where they can go, etc.? Over to you, man.
Don't put it off till later. Go to CannaSense.com, at least bookmark the site. Go through the different tabs at the top to get educated. Put in a support ticket if you need a sponsor. If you want to reach us on Facebook, it's CannaSense Total Wellness on Facebook. You can message us there. We have a YouTube channel, which is also CannaSense Total Wellness. There's a lot of educational videos that the Liberty Beacon at thelibertybeacon.com helps to produce. Check them out there. Me and Ron's going to bash me over the head about this, but there's an Instagram and a Twitter, but I don't know anything about Instagram and Twitter because I wouldn't even mess with Facebook if I didn't have to, but it's out there. I'm sure if you put CannaSense in the Twitter or the Instagram, you'll find us. But yeah, go to the site. At least get your information in there so you can get into the hallways of information, and then from there,
it's a
man,
nice clean website, man. I was on there today. You know, some websites are awful. They really are. They're terrible. But it's a nice clean website. It's very explanatory, very simple to use. CannaSense.com, ladies and gentlemen. CannaSense.com. Please visit there, find out more. I'll certainly be bringing Daniel back on in the future to find out more, find out how CannaSense is getting on, see what's going on.
Yeah, let's talk next time. Let's talk about aliens or something.
Yeah, dude, because you're a bit of a philosopher in your spare time, right? You get onto all the kind of topics that I love to geek out about.
Yeah, that's what cannabis will do to you.
Yeah. See, that's what we'll do tomorrow or the next day. I'll be booking you up for another show, and we'll get into all of that stuff. But dude, keep doing what you're doing. Say thank you to all of the rest of the team at CannaSense, from myself here at KBS and from TFR. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing, man. You are providing solutions to people listening right now who may not know where to go. And that, Daniel, that for me is winning. Good on you, man.
Thanks, Kev. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
No, absolutely fantastic, folks. We'll be back for hour number 2. Jimmy Jean's on the way. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.